So what I would like to do first is maybe to introduce some of our team members. I know that you have been waiting for seeing some of the faces that are behind the successful bid for taking over the concession of Sofia Airport. So let me just start introducing first of all my colleague Guy Sardari, who is the project leader and has been leading the team winning the bid, and is also going to be one of the supervisory board members of SoftConnect. On his right side, Jacques Ferrand, also member of Meridian team, and he is the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of SoftConnect, and in his role he is leading all the activities of Sofia, SoftConnect, and the new airport. On his right side we have Ilya Kardashev. He is going to be our Chief Financial Officer. We are very proud to have him as the first one of a long series of Bulgarian to be in the management of the airport. On my left side I have two colleagues from Munich Airport. First one, Henning Pfisterer, who will be the Chief Operating Officer of the airport, which means that he will be in charge of all the operative business. On his left side we have Christian Stoschek, who has been in the last 8 to 9 months leading the teams that have been working on preparing the transition, which means that he is in charge of all the processes of the acquisition of information and on preparing the new teams and the new operations to start.
Преди да продължим с представянето на инвестиционните намерения на фонд Меридиан и нека да видим едно видео, което ще представи пред вас международния опит на фонда.
At Meridian, creating impact is at the heart of everything we do and is embodied in our corporate mission, delivering sustainable infrastructure that improves the quality of people's lives. We are a team of 300 members in 9 offices across the globe. We manage $8 billion in assets and over 80 projects in 25 countries, totaling more than $65 billion of capital deployed. We are not just investors. We are developers and engineers, designing and creating the infrastructure of tomorrow. We are also long-term asset managers beyond 25 years, operating, renovating, and upgrading infrastructure projects day after day since our founding in 2005. Our business strategy is aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and our ongoing and early commitment to an ESG sustainability focus. We provide solutions in 3 key sectors: mobility of people and goods, energy transition and environment, and social infrastructure. Our mobility solutions bring people closer together in a fast and safe environment. Our energy transition and environment projects actively reduce pollution and provide renewable alternatives that contribute to regional economic development. Our social infrastructure provides access to health and education worldwide. That is how we see value creation over the long term for all our stakeholders, from investors to partners, public authorities, and local communities. Delivering sustainable infrastructure and impactful solutions today and for future generations.
Надявам се видеото да ви е дало повече информация и повече вдъхновение за въпросите, които ще последват, но след още и допълнителна информация от господин Марко Росо, който би искал да допълни още за проектите на Меридиан.
Yes, thank you. I think the first remark I would like to make is why we are here today and why you haven't seen us before. There are 2 reasons for that. The first one is that until now We have focused our work, first of all, on getting to win the bid, and in a second phase, to show the reasons in different court hearings on why we were the best bidder. And then we have been starting to work on being ready and able to be a good operator and to change the face, but also the substance of this airport. Why are we here today? It's easy. We have been called into the arena by informations that not always have been true, sometimes also false. And therefore we think we should give the media and also the public opinion the possibility to question us also on questions that might not be easy to answer, and what better place than press conference. As you have seen in the video, Meridiam is a fund, which means that we are managing money that we are getting from insurances, pension funds, international lending institutions like EBRD, EIB, the European Investment Bank. And in fact, this is the reason why we are proud to be called a long-term investor. Our clients are the people that is saving for their retirement, that are going to buy an insurance, and that want to see that their old years or elder years are done with and are secure. Therefore, we go early into investing in infrastructure, and as you have seen, we do this on mobility, which means roads, airports, train, tramways, but also social infrastructure, which is schools, hospitals, public buildings, renovation and refurbishment of existing housing situations and student accommodations, but also in the energy sector with different energy production sites like biogas plants, waste to energy, but also big transmission lines between continents that are the future of our infrastructure. We are more than 300 people working to achieve these goals, and we invest or have invested more than 8 billion euros in equity and junior funds all around the world, in North America, Europe and Africa. Our main offices are in Paris and New York, and we are also proud to say that we have invested in 26 countries, and if we will be successful here, it will be 27. What we try to point out is that our investors have given us the mandate to be the first to go in new places, to take more risk than others. And our long-term approach means not that we are not working for profit or for giving our investors return, but we can wait longer. And therefore, we are able to provide conditions and also to be resilient to problems and shocks that our projects will have. We try to invest in projects that have an essential character for the communities in which we are going to be, which means that we try to be involved only in projects that are coherent with the highest standards in terms of resilience, of environmental improvement, but also in the social and governance sectors. This is, of course, very important for any investor, but if you want to stay in a place and be perceived by a community to help and to improve the life of the people, you need to have these goals foremost. Sometimes profit comes only in the second place. And with that, I hope that I have given you a short introduction of what we want to do here and why we are here. And if okay for you, I will open the floor for questions.
Колеги, искам само да ви кажа, че индивидуални моменти след това за интервюта, индивидуални няма да има възможност да направим. Затова ще ви помоля да задавате въпросите си сега. Ще има колеги, които да ви подадат микрофони. Самуил Огнянов? Да, може и на този.
Здравейте, аз съм Самуил Огнянов, през 24 часа. Имам два въпроса. Първият е, доколкото разбираме от публичната декларация на Антони Блинкен, преди да заеме настоящия пост на държавен секретар, той е бил част от Меридиан. Да ни кажете какво и как е правил той в компанията. всичките проекти, които управлява компанията и дали имате опит в управлението на летище?
So thank you. I think the first question is about Blinken, right? Okay. The actual State Secretary of the United States has been part of Meridian Supervisory Board for the time that he has been between serving the Obama administration and now the Biden administration. But he is one of different personalities that have been going along with Meridian's philosophy in investment and that have been helping us to understand and to advise us on how and where to invest responsibly. Anthony Blinken is one, but in the supervisory board we try to gather expertise both in the infrastructure sector but also with the geopolitical experience. So for example, actually today in our supervisory board there are other personalities like a former Prime Minister of Canada, Joe Clark, or the former Chief Commander of the NATO, General Wesley Clark, but has also been for 2 terms serving in the supervisory board, Joschka Fischer, the former Foreign Minister of Germany, and other personalities, ex-head of state. It is an advising body, it's not a lobbying body, but we are proud that such personalities are showing the world that we are not, let me quote some of the shady, untransparent organization, but that we have nothing to hide and are standing with our name and with our face for the philosophy of investment. In terms of experience in the airport, yes, we have around 90 projects today of different sizes, but some of the most important ones are airports. We are the owner of the concession and the operator of the airports, both of airports in Madagascar, of the Amman airport, but most of all, we are part of the winning team that is rebuilding and restructuring the Terminal B on the LaGuardia Airport in New York, which is a project that is changing the existing airport that has a big problem in terms of usage. It's an old airport built in '64 that today is seeing 14 million passengers where there is only room for 8. So the investment that we are leading in that project today is more than $2 billion, and we can be proud to say that this is a success already now. It's an airport that we changed and that we rebuilt whilst it is used, so in very difficult conditions. I hope this answers the question.
Други въпроси? Господин Ангелов.
Борис Ангелов, да, 19 минути. Искам да ви питам няколко неща. Първото е във връзка и с въпроса на колегата, защо сега решихте да инвестирате в България, защо до сега не сте го правили. Сигурно държавният секретар ви е посъветвал, това в рамките на шегата, разбира се. Така. Втори въпрос е какво ще преобразите в летище София, за да стане то конкурентно европейско летище, тъй като пътуваме, виждаме, че определено в момента не е. И накрая, като гледаме това, което се случва с вашия фонд в Франция, например, имате ли интерес към други инвестиции в България, в това число и в ютилити сектора? Благодаря.
Okay, to the first question, why in Bulgaria and now, let me divide it in two. So why in Bulgaria? We are a fund, and our mandate of the European part of our funds is to invest in infrastructure in the EU, which means that Bulgaria has been a target of interest since 10-15 years already. But we have also to admit that until now it was very difficult for us to find a project that would meet criteria of size, but also of essentiality, and also be tendered under a regulation that, let's say, it's able to deliver a project in a project finance structure that makes it easier for banks and lenders to finance it, and that gives also a clear perspective because there is a clear framework that will help to master a long period like 35 times. I have to say that To answer your third question about what future investments could be in Bulgaria, I am positive that we will see other projects like this, and if there would be things that in all sectors that have characteristics like this, we would be interested. Let's also be clear, we are not an investor that buys a project. We will not be the owner of Sofia Airport, we will be the concessionaire. So we see us more as a partner for the public, which means that we are building, financing, operating an asset that at a certain point goes back to the state or to the municipality and actually to the community. It's a much healthier scheme than just buying an asset and taking all the upsides. It's much more resilient if you have a scheme like a concession where there is benefits for both parts and suffering for both parts if hard times come.
Да продължим с госпожа Николова, която преди малко също искаше да зададе въпрос.
Да, добър ден. 3 въпроса имам и аз към вас. Първият е заради това, че е доста ограничен поток от пътници заради коронавируса и пандемията. Толкова ли е много, че да се налага отлагането на таксите, заплащането на таксите, които трябва да получи българската държава? Вторият ви въпрос е, тъй като вие влизате в един предизборен контекст, вероятно сте запознати и твърденията на много политически сили всъщност са политическа борба. Може ли такъв контекст да ви накара да продадете своята концесия? И трети ви въпрос е свързан с това, че вероятно състоянието на българското летище предполага значителни инвестиции, но изненадаха ли ви те с нещо и планираното ще достигне ли или ще се наложи да увеличите инвестиционния си фонд за летище София?
I have to admit that the second question is not completely clear to me, so maybe it was because of the So let me start with the first one. Can you repeat it maybe? Yes.
Може ли втория?
Срещу вашата компания имаше остри политически нападки заради това, че ние се намираме в предизборна ситуация. Може би това го знаете. Да. И това може ли да ви обезсърчи и да ви накара да продадете тази концесия?
It was good to ask, so look, I think the first answer is unfortunately very clear. When we bought the concession, it was 2000. When we won the bid for the concession, it was 2019. I think that the tender was started in 2018. And today we all know that this was a completely different world. It has changed all our lives, but in the aviation sector we see this more than anywhere else. Today the traffic or the passengers that are flying through Sofia or landing or starting here have the same level that they had last time in 1995. Which is 25 years ago, which means that the whole sector today is struggling to survive. The revenues that come in are 50% airlines, and most of the airlines in the world today are facing severe situations, and nobody knows how long and how far this situation will go. And as a friend that has told me in Bulgaria, you say that we had to buy factories the 9th of September. This is what happened in the last year. But the concession agreement tender was done in a way that there would be a mechanism already implanted that if something very difficult and very severe would happen, the parties would have an obligation to find a solution, and if their solution would not be, there would be a cancellation or retendering or different things. So in the light of the pandemic, the government has asked us to look for and to help and to sit down and negotiate for a rebalancing that would allow to keep the benefits of this concession. In the press, we have always have seen that it is talked about gifts that we receive, but we miss sometimes the consideration of the fact that there are 280 million euros that the government wants to receive on the day we start the operations. And this is something that we kept also in this situation. There is 600 million euros or 1.2 billion left that we have committed to invest, which is answering your third question in a way, but makes sense. We will not diminish the investment. We will adapt it in time with the situation where we think in the next 4 to 5 years, and this is the general understanding of the markets today, passenger levels will reach again what we had in 2019. So we will use the time to do the things that are mostly needed today, because we all know that probably the most important thing today is not that we start tomorrow to build the Terminal 3, but it is to change the face of this airport. There are works to be done, refurbishment. It has to be brought to standards of our European airport, and therefore we have our partners from Munich that are committed to change the face. It is the entry point and the exit point. It's the first thing that someone sees in Bulgaria, and it's the last impression that it takes when you leave. So our aim here is, and our obligation is to keep the investment at the minimum of what we have committed at the tender phase. And if there will be a need for further investment, this will be in the interest of ourselves, of creating more traffic, of having passengers that will have finally retail possibility to see the airport not so much as a place where to spend the less amount of time possible, but where they will feel welcomed, where they will have the feeling that this is a good place to be, where they can live with their families and spend a good amount of time, and that is our goal. So, coming to your second question about the political attacks, let's be clear, we are very in favor of a free opinion and of the fact that people might disagree with us or with whoever has been part of this endeavor until now. We have never reacted. It is clear that in the media sometimes the informations cannot be accurate because of the lack of information available, or because it is sometimes difficult to explain complex facts with simple words. But what has happened in the last weeks, of course, has attacked our integrity as an entity, as a fund, and therefore also in the interest of our investors and of our stakeholders, of the persons that are involved and are attached to us worldwide, we had to take a firm stand and to make a statement that you all have seen, but also to stand here and say that we will not be able, also if we would like to tolerate attacks that are putting doubts on our integrity and our seriousness. The investment plan? Yes, the investment, I think I can repeat. Oh, no, it's easy to answer, but let me give you one thing. We have today 95 projects that we have won in the last, or developed by ourselves, or acquired in the last 15 years. And we have never sold any of these. We have never gone out of a project because we wanted to cash in a profit. But this has to do with the fact that our investors are in insurances and pension funds that want us to stay as long as possible. In the USA, we have projects that have a life of more than 50 years. We are committed to stay there and to develop them again and again, which means that we are able to wait longer, so we don't need to see profits in the first years. And this is a situation that, because of COVID, but because of the concession is happening in Sofia, we can wait longer. We are patient, and we usually commit for staying over the whole time of the concession. So in 35 years, we will give back, I hope, a completely different airport to the state that will be and this is our aim, will have made Bulgaria proud of their infrastructure, and maybe will be the first of a series of projects that will attract foreign investors to help develop rather than just taking profits out of the country.
Мирослав Иванов, Travel News. Да ви питам, ще стартира ли проекта тази година? Строителство. И ще се добавят ли тази транспортна инвестиция?
I think the answer is clear. We are not going to delay the investments. I mean, let's also be honest. Today we are the concessionaire on the paper, but we don't know yet when commencement date will be. We hope that this will be sooner than later. We are ready. The team is prepared. Of course, there is on one side the pandemic that has probably delayed the start of operations in terms of heavy traffic of passengers by at least 5-6 years. But I think that if you look at the investment from the two main trees of investment, one is what needs to be done to this airport immediately, and of course there is a lot of things that come to mind, from the refurbishment of the existing infrastructure, from upgrading what we have now to an airport of international standards. And I know that this is, clearly comes to mind. It starts with the toilets and it ends up with the gates and the ability to process a higher number of people, also in the security part, but also the ways in which the people has to walk. And this is something that we will do right from the beginning, and in a way, having less passenger will help us to be able to work in certain sectors while we don't have to close them. And we will take this advantage. What refers to the bigger part of the investment, which is, has always been, and this is an obligation that comes out of the concession agreement, we are obliged to build the new Terminal 3 in the first 10 years. This obligation has not been changed, so we will keep this investment as well. It is also clear that not all of the things that we wanted to do the first day will be able to be started the first day, but substantially we have not changed the rhythm and the idea of when we are going to invest and put the money on the ground.
I have a question about the airport charges, because a couple of times the Minister of Transport said that we want to tender for the promise not to increase the charges, but in October the Sophia airport increased charges significantly, and till now we don't have a final decision from Civil Aviation Administration, and the final decision will come probably after the elections in May. And my question is, if that decision is to increase the charges, where are you going to decrease them back to the levels before, as you promised? And my second question is, were there something like a counter offer from the state during this process when you offered when you made your final offer not to pay the first 10 years, to delay the payment? Were there any counter offer, like for example, not to pay 5 years, why 10? Did somebody try to protect more the interests of the state?
On the charges, thank you for the question, because actually we have seen different information, and we have been spectators on this. I have to say that in the discussions with the ministry, there was never a discussion between us and the ministry about the charges today. And please understand that I will not comment if we think that this was right or wrong, because in a way this is the policy that is the previous airport operator is taking. But if you ask what our policy will be, I can confirm that we have not changed our plans. we have promised, and this was one of the most important distinctive characteristics of our bid with others, that we would not significantly change and increase the charges in the first years. And today, and we stay with this policy, and today it is also clear that we believe that increasing the charges during the COVID crisis is for sure not a policy that we would go. Since you give me this opportunity, maybe I can explain you with an example what the difference between a policy of moderate inflation-linked or less increase of charges means compared with the policy where you just increase by 20-30% your charges. It might seem that the second one, increasing the charges in one and keeping them very high, is increasing your revenues. But actually, it takes passengers from the airport, because you take the money from the only passengers that cannot avoid to come to Sofia. And this is, from our perspective, and we know that at least one of our competitors had this policy, is exactly the opposite of what we want to do. We think that to keep the airport sustainable and the growth for the next 35 years, we need to make sure that both the rich companies, but also the companies that have offer low cost, need to have an interest to come to the airport. We will make sure that if we go for higher returns, it will be over the quantity of the passengers that come to Sofia, and therefore this will increase also the touristic income for the city and for the country itself, but also our revenues that we will generate through our retail and the offers that we will have in the airport besides that. On the question if on the ministry side, let's say on the state side, there was less or more protection in the rebalancing, I can tell you that our first offer was not 10 years, right? It is, you have to consider that depending on the calculation, the pandemic, COVID, has deprived the value of the whole concession by almost 300 million euros. If you assume what is the recovery path that we have today towards what the traffic was before the pandemic, calculations from independent experts, this is not our calculations, are showing that you could either keep the 280 million euros upfront and never pay any concession fee, or if you would insist on keeping the concession fee, or if you would consider the change in risk that now everybody is seeing in the aviation sector, because you don't know if the passengers will come or not back, how many of the airlines will be bankrupt or not, which means that if you would retender today, you would have, in a comparable situation, no or almost zero concession fee and only 160 million of upfront fee. And you understand that this is a fact that has not been created neither by the government nor by us nor by anybody, and therefore we have asked to restore the full situation, because we were of the opinion that as a private company we had the right to get the full compensation. And to answer your question, the people on the government and the Ministry of Transport, but also Ministry of Finance, have been very adamant that we would preserve the sustainability rather than the profitability for the private investor. So the 10 years is a function of what can, under this expected conditions, that we will have traffic back in 2024 as it was in 2019, what can be sustained in levels of employment, debt means finding financing on the international market, sustain the investments, the losses that will happen from here to probably 2035, right? But also to keep the upfront payment of 280 million for the government, and to make sure that we keep the high level of sharing of the concession fee of 32% feasible over the time. So yes, there has been a compromise, but today the figures and the facts are saying that out of the damage of COVID, 80% has been taken by the private investor, by us, and only 20% by the public authority.
Други въпроси имаме ли, колеги? Не. Благодаря ви много, че бяхте днес, още веднъж. И се надявам, че ще продължим да държим връзка, така че да ви информираме често за дейността на фонд Meridian в България. Благодаря.
Thank you very much. Thank you.